Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for the November meeting of the ETSU Board of Trustees. During our last board meeting in September, trustees heard reports on new enrollment growth, efforts to modernize business operations through the Voyager project, and progress toward keeping KPIs outlined in the strategic plan. Since that meeting, our university observed its inaugural Founders Week celebration, which included a ribbon-cutting ceremony for the newly renovated Gilbreth Hall. We had the recognition of ETSU's unsung heroes who go above and beyond for this institution every day. And President Nolan gave a wonderfully informative State of the University address, which highlighted many of the outstanding accomplishments of our campus community and outlined the challenges and opportunities facing us today in higher education's landscape. If you've not yet watched the President's State of the University address, I would encourage you to do so by visiting etsu.edu/president. But perhaps the most exciting event during Founders Week was the ETSU Elevates competition. During this competition, 9 teams of students, working closely with community partners, pitched their ideas to solve social, economic, and environmental problems for our region. Through creativity, passion, and innovation these students and their partners demonstrated for living ETSU's mission was nothing short of inspiring. At the end of the competition, ETSU awarded $25,000 to the top 3 presenters to help bring their ideas to life and to invest directly back into our communities. I like to say that at ETSU, we are in the business of tomorrow. And these students and their ideas certainly exemplify this statement. I know that we as a board are incredibly proud of this institution's commitment to fulfilling our regional mission. During committee meetings, we get to see numerous examples of this work in action. A few weeks ago, I, President Nolan, and staff and faculty from the ETSU Research Corporation, ETSU Health, and the Office of Research and Sponsored Programs met with Commissioner Stuart McWhorter from the Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development. During the meeting, we toured ETSU's Eastman Valley Brook facilities and discussed ways that the university might expand its impact in driving economic growth, innovation, and community development for Northeast Tennessee, while simultaneously creating high-quality jobs and a workforce for the future technology of tomorrow. Commissioner McWhorter clearly recognized the potential and impact that Valley Brook could provide for our region. As the board has now discussed for over 5 years, we have such an amazing opportunity in this space. We know that the bioeconomy is currently valued over $1 trillion and is expected to grow over $30 trillion in this next decade. We have been provided with an in-depth analysis of how ETSU could be a part of this future. And we have explained in the past board meetings that, as well as the ETSU Bioeconomy Symposium, how we can all make this community rise. We are excited that we are making the headway by creating the wonderful minors in synthetic biology and mechatronics. We have a commitment from our forward-thinking president and the provost that this will continue to be front and center as the board has directed over numerous meetings. However, it is surprising how long it takes to take simple steps to prepare the actual Valley Brook site because it is a critical step for the future. Not only myself, but some of our other trustees and community members cannot understand how we are still underutilizing this multi-million-dollar facility and its coveted laboratory spaces, which are in such high demand due to the extreme shortage of biotechnology spaces, which the commissioner recognized. So at our next upcoming board meeting in February, our board would like to hear about these simple issues, such as fixing some of the lab hoods and movement of storage items, so that this can all be resolved and the Research Corporation can move ahead with this incredible opportunity. I've long said that ETSU is one of the state's best kept secrets and a powerhouse of potential. As we get to hear in our morning committee meetings, and how have we seen under our president's leadership, our students, faculty, and staff compete at a world-class level, and they are continuing to help transform this region into a global leader by spurring innovation and providing a high quality of life for all. Through our time on this board, we have watched this university grow into an R2 research university, and I truly feel we can strive to become an R1. I'm so proud of this institution, and I would like to take a moment to thank and commend each of you in this room across campus and in our community, for helping to build something truly special here at ETSU. Thank you for the contributions you have made and for all you continue to do to elevate this institution and our region. I'll now turn to Dr. Green and ask that he take the roll.
Trustee Allen.
Here.
Trustee Ayers.
Here.
Trustee DiCarlo.
Here.
Trustee Fry-Clark. Trustee Grisham.
Here.
Trustee Ramsey. Trustee Stegall-Jones.
Here.
Trustee Shake. Trustee Treadway.
Here.
Chair Latimer.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Dr. Green, do we have any individuals who have pre-registered to speak to the board as part of the public comment portion of the agenda?
We do not, Madam Chair.
Okay, next then we can go to the approval of the minutes. Trustees, you will find minutes from our September meeting in your materials. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I so move.
Second?
Second.
Are there questions, comments, edits, or discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Earlier this morning, the Academic Research and Student Success Committee met. I'll now turn to Trustee Ayers for an update on the committee's work.
Thank you. This morning we had 4 information items, and as usual, it was very interesting conversation and discussion about what's happening great at ETSU. The first item was Provost Dr. Kimberly McCorkle and Dr. Mike Hoff presented to the committee on the quality assurance funding process managed by the Tennessee Higher Education Commission. This is an opportunity. It's been around. It's been renamed to earn up to 5.45% beyond the outcomes formula funding. There are 6 standard areas, which include education assessment, major field assessment, academic programs, institutional satisfaction, student equity, and student access and success. We've participated in this process since 1978, and as Dr. Hoff pointed out, which I thought was a really important, relevant point about this process, there is a difference between performance and quality with the focus on quality, and ETSU obtained a 96 out of the possible 100 points. The other important point that we covered today was the THEC approval process for the mechatronics program. Almost a year to the day for this meeting was approved yesterday. So the mechatronics program has been approved and it should start in the fall of 24. And we have only one more pending item before THEC, which should come up before in the spring meeting of THEC, which is the Masters in Music. So we should be able to start both programs in the fall of 2024. The next item on our agenda at the committee meeting was Dr. Dawn Rowe, who is the professor and Quillen Chair of Excellence in the Clemmer College of Education and Human Development. And she provided an overview of her research and funded projects in the field of secondary special education. Because of her modesty and her passion for the program, she failed to recognize herself. But she came to ETSU just in 2018 and has already brought $8 million worth of research dollars to the university. She was voted among her peers as the leading researcher at ETSU. And Access ETSU is both a federal and state funded program along with the Tennessee Believes program that works with the Tennessee Department of Intellectual and Development Disabilities. We got to have highlighted in our packet several of the students that participate in this program and actually had one here with us. I think every one of us on this committee was touched and moved because this isn't a program that talks about making a difference in the community's lives and the lives of the students. It was very evident that it's moving the needle and changing lives. It is a program that focuses on integrated employment. It's access into lifelong changing of substantial employment and not just finding them a job. I think the best example I heard is not everybody wants to be in food service or cleaning. And we have people that are in radio and security and all kinds of things. So they're living life dreams, and it's students that sometimes don't get recognized, and I think ETSU needs to be commended, and Dr. Rowe, especially for her passion for the project. She went straight into the project and completely bypassed all of her accolades. So I think it made me like her even that much more. Her focus is in the right place. The next item was another one who knew, but it was Dr. Block, Dean of the Quillen College of Medicine, and Dr. Tom Kinser, Associate Dean for Rural and Community Programs. and they gave a brief update on the EQUIP program, and we got to meet 2 students who were part of that program. It stands for Extending Quillen to the Underserved through an Integrated Program. And this is a unique program that's fairly new, started in spring of 2021, with a mission to identify, mentor, and educate undergraduate college students to become primary care doctors committed to rural and underserved medicine. And there's a pathway forward that mentors those students. Like I said, we met 2 students this morning that are in that process that will be starting this fall in the College of Medicine with a dedication of being in family medicine, primary care, working in rural areas. Certainly sticks to the mission of the university in a much needed area. Finally, we heard from Dr. Heather Levesque and Dr. Leah Adnofi in the Division of Student Life and Enrollment reported on student engagement efforts that are contributing to the recruitment, retention, and success of ETSU students. We saw the growth that was happening in all kinds of areas besides just the concerts we've heard about, but every aspect, outdoor living, social life, all kinds of things that this department is engaging in to get students active outside of the classroom, with the approach to student life that it is first to ensure that students feel like they matter and are valued, invest in resources and opportunities that facilitate engagement, cultivate a sense of belonging, and ultimately ensure that the students persist, having established a supportive network on campus. And there, again, we saw a lot of passion and commitment and dedication. I think we all agree and understand in order for you to get to and through college, the academic part is why we're here, so that you can be gainfully employed at the end of the Dr. Tom rule in my family, but at the same time, that social engagement and feeling like you're belonging to something else and finding your group is critically important to retention, and I'm thankful to see the work that they're doing. I think that the conclusion of the process is we continue to learn the depth and the passion that's happening all over at ETSU. And I said it in passing, but I sincerely believe it. It is more like who knew. There is so much happening in this university, and we get that unique perspective and vantage point when we have these committee meetings to actually get a little bit deeper dive, and are thankful for the leadership and what's happening on this campus. And that's my report.
Thank you, Trustee Ayers. Our Finance and Administration Committee also met this morning. I'll now turn to Trustee DiCarlo for an update on the committee's work.
Thank you. The Finance and Administration Committee met this morning to review several items. First of all, I'd like to thank Christy Graham, who does all the work, obviously, and keeps us informed. The committee reviewed a report prepared in compliance with the Tuition Transparency Act. The report is provided to the state legislature each year to demonstrate how tuition revenues were used and the effect on student cost of attendance and financial aid. Since there was no tuition increase in the prior fiscal year, there is no increase in tuition revenues to report. The committee approved the October 2023 budget revisions, which are included in the board consent agenda on pages 36 through 42, and were discussed and linked during the committee meeting. The October budget includes increases in expenditures budgets that arise from the carry forwards of funds from the previous year. The funds became available after the university closed the financial accounts for the year, and the carry forward dollars are identified. The committee reviewed the quarterly report of contracts and agreements over $250,000 for the first quarter of fiscal 2024. The quarterly report of revenues and expenditures was provided, and variance between current first quarter and prior year were discussed. The committee received an update on the current initiatives underway across the Division of Business and Finance. Details on the current work of the advisory committee reviewing the current resource allocation model was discussed. A brief overview of the Oracle transition was also discussed. Discussion centered around the extension of the implementation date to July 1st. And with that, I conclude my report.
Thank you, Trustee DiCarlo. And finally, I'll turn to Trustee Stigall-Jones to provide an update on the Audit Committee's work.
Once again, I am thrilled to announce that we had a lackluster meeting that didn't have a lot of A lot of issues in it, thank goodness. But we did have 2 action items. I'm going to do these a little bit different order. But the first action item, we had an action item on the FY24 plan, audit plan. We have had a fraud, waste, and abuse reporting, and that we are putting on the audit plan for internal audit 2402. That was unanimous. The second action item we had was the approval of a policy on the audit of expenses related to the function of the Office of the President. We had a policy, it wasn't, but we're just basically memorializing that and having a formal policy. That brings me to the Office of the President's report was completed since we last met. I do want to read 2 items from that. Just getting to the bottom, question costs were none. And the conclusion on that audit was the objectives of the audit related to the President's expenses for the fiscal year July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023 were met. The audit revealed no statutory or policy violations, material omissions from the expense reports, or deficiencies in internal controls. She then went over one more audit that has been completed that had to do with the ProCard in the chemistry department, and that has been completed and reported on. And then she also reviewed the completed audit heat map. We also, Ms. Lewis also went over the audit committee responsibilities. That's something we need to do every year, and she read those to us, and I believe we all fully understand those. And then lastly, we did go into executive session. It lasted a little bit longer than normal. Ms. Lewis did go over the assessment of risk, enterprise risk management, and the review of university risk and internal controls was reviewed with us, so we would understand where those were. That's my report.
Thank you, Trustee Stigall-Jones. As noted in the materials in your agenda, you will find several routine items, including items acted upon during this morning's committee meetings, included on the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that members would like to pull for discussion and consideration by the full board? Hearing none, I would then ask for a motion for the adoption of the consent agenda. Second?
I second.
All those in favor? Any discussion? Okay, it passed. Next, we will receive an enrollment update from Dr. Tony Pittarisi.
Madam Chair and members of the board, thank you so much for this opportunity to speak with you this afternoon about the work of my colleagues in the College of Business and Technology. We have a lot of very exciting things going on. In your meeting materials, there's a fairly thorough discussion of a number of things, but for the sake of time, I'm going to hit the highlights and then at the end can circle back with any questions that you might have. The College of Business and Technology consists of 6 academic departments: accountancy, computing, digital media, economics and finance, engineering technology and surveying, management, marketing, and supply chain. We also have interior architecture as a program in the college, although that's not represented in the name of a department. And we're also exceedingly proud to be home to the ROTC and military science program here at ETSU. The College of Business and Technology is ETSU's second largest college this fall. We have 3,072 students pursuing a degree in the college. That is notable because that is the high water mark in the history of the college for enrollment. Over the last 2 years, we have grown 16%. And that's not just coming off of a COVID period. If we look back historically, the previous high enrollment for the college was in 2017, which was 2,890 students. So we've surpassed our enrollment rather notably. And I think that's a result of some of the things that I'm going to highlight for you today in terms of new programs that have been created and new activities that we are pursuing in the college. One of the things that we have spent a lot of time looking at over the last year and a half is looking at our purpose, looking at our mission, looking at our goals, developing performance indicators, and coming up with a revised strategic plan. And one of the things that we really like to focus on in the college is our purpose is very well represented by the name of our college. We're the College of Business and Technology, which means that in addition to programs in business and programs in technology, we really are seeking to explore the intersection of those two fields and seeking to graduate business graduates that understand the technology of the contemporary environment and graduate technology students that understand the business environment and the business context of their work. We benchmark this against a number of different constituent groups, and 2 weeks ago from this exact moment, I was meeting with some members of our College Dean's Executive Council. We have about 75 professionals from the region as well as beyond that convene twice a year in smaller groups that we talk with about things going on in the college. We solicit their input. We do some benchmarking activities with them, and it has been really great to work through our purpose, mission, goals, and vision with that group. In terms of things that we're working on in the college right now, we have 5 areas of strategic focus. I'm only going to have time to highlight 2 of them today. One of them is the creation of new academic programs, particularly programs that represent cross-discipline opportunities, and then talk about our efforts to grow our engagement with the external professional community. We have brought online a number of new academic programs since 2022. This year we launched a hospitality and tourism concentration. You can't think of the state of Tennessee and not think of hospitality and tourism, and so this was a program that has been missing from our portfolio for far too long. Step 1 is the concentration. It is my great hope that in the very near future we will come back to you with a proposal for a full program in this area, but we're starting with the concentration and then building up from there. Our engineering technology graduate program has added new concentrations. Our MBA program, we have done significant revisions around modality and format. You can now earn your MBA if you are so inclined in 1 year's time by taking courses that are offered in 7-week modules as opposed to the traditional 15-week modules. And we've added new concentrations: business analytics, cybersecurity management, healthcare marketing. And this is a great illustration of the business and technology focus that we really have in the college right now. The business analytics and cybersecurity management concentration courses are taught by members of our computing faculty, while the other courses are taught by business faculty. Our graduate certificate in data analytics has been very well received. The MFA program in digital media enrolls over 24 students at this time. Our supply chain management concentration was promoted to a full program, very similar to the strategy that we're going to pursue with hospitality and tourism, and we've added new concentrations in that area. And then we've also added new concentration in entrepreneurship and a minor as well. All of this since 2022. And I think this is one of the key reasons why we have been able to draw more students into the college, because of the new opportunities that this brings our way. In terms of things that we're working on, you've heard about one of them today, and I'm going to be very happy to be able to take mechatronics off of the in development list and talk about them in terms of in process in the very near future. But beyond the work in mechatronics, our computing faculty and our digital media faculty have been working on a new program that we're calling interdisciplinary digital development. The idea is that if you want to create a computer game, right now you could study digital media and learn about the visual aspects of it, and you could study computing and learn about the programming aspect of it, but we don't have a program right now that brings all that together. This program will change this. So you could study a degree, earn a degree in interdisciplinary digital development and develop every aspect of a video game, as well as developing resources for the web and other contemporary media. We have been working on updating our Bachelor of Business Administration core. And then another new program that we are working on that is interdisciplinary is fintech. If you've paid attention to a lot of the development going on in the banking and finance industry, you know that fintech is incredibly hot right now, tremendous job opportunities. And what I have been amazed to realize is, at this time, there is not a Tennessee institution that offers a degree in fintech. Well, our finance and computing faculty are already working on this. We believe we have over 80% of the courses already in our portfolio. We just have to organize them a little bit and then add some new courses that particularly focus on fintech, and we hope to be able to roll this program out in the near future. It's a tremendous area of growth right now, and we think it represents tremendous new opportunities. Other new things that we have been working on, we launched the Andrew Leadership Academy that provides students the ability to develop leadership skills through service learning, and that has been very well received. Our Center for Banking was relaunched as the Center for the Study of Finance to broaden the focus of that center. And what I was just talking about with fintech is a good example of an effort that this new center is revising. One of the things that we have done this year, which I think is a notable improvement for our students, is centered around the first-year experience. In most of our technology programs, we have had a first-year experience course required for our students, but we haven't had that in business. And the net effect was a lot of business students would come to ETSU, they would enroll, and they wouldn't really hit the first course that resonated with their area of interest until their sophomore, even their junior year. So by adding a new course that students will take the first semester of their freshman year that particularly focuses on an introduction to business and acquaints them with all of the different areas, we think this is something that will really drive retention of students. This semester is the first semester where it became required for all of our business students. We hired a first-year experience director to manage this effort for it, because as you can see, it's rather substantial. We have over 800 students enrolled in this course this year, 21 sections of the course across the college, 17 instructors, 25 student peer mentors. It's a substantial part of our effort to reach out to new ETSU students. Really proud that the College of Business and Technology is home to the Blue Sky Tennessee Institute. I've spoken with the Academic Research and Student Success Committee about this before. This is our accelerated Bachelor of Science in Computing program that we have developed in collaboration with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee. It targets underserved students. We have 60 students in the program right now, and next week we begin admissions interviews for the third cohort. Really excited about what we have seen in terms of student retention and outcomes coming out of this program. This affords students the ability to earn a Bachelor of Science in Computing at absolutely no cost, and it guarantees them a job offer on the back end. Wonderful opportunity of public-private partnership that we are looking to develop with other partners as well. And then lastly, I'll just hit the highlights of some other things we have been focusing on in regards to external engagement. One of the things that we have been challenging ourselves is to get out in the community more and be more active in the professional community. Our digital media program has a partnership with East Tennessee Children's Hospital in Knoxville, where they're developing virtual reality training resources that parents and staff members at the hospital are using to learn how to care for children that have particularly challenging needs. I mentioned our partnership with Blue Cross Blue Shield. This last spring, we conducted our first Appalachian Highlands Economic Forum, and this fall we did our first Appalachian Highlands Supply Chain and Digital Technology Summit. These are examples of things that we're bringing to the community as an effort to give our faculty more opportunity to engage with the professional community and get feedback from those groups. Both of those events held in the Martin Center and very well attended. I've had to move quickly to hit some highlights here, and I've only touched on a few of the things that we have going on, but I did want to give opportunity for any questions that you might have about any of the things that I've mentioned, or perhaps any other things that you might be wondering.
Thank you, Dr. Pittarisi. Are there any questions from the board? It's a wide scope and great work.
What are you hearing mostly from students that we lack, that we're not providing? Are you getting any feedback on that?
Very Very little. We have done a portfolio review, and apart from the things that I've highlighted, hospitality and tourism stands out the most. Hospitality and tourism, we think there's an opportunity in fintech, and then the other place where our portfolio could be built out further is in programs related to engineering. We don't have all the different flavors of engineering that you might find at other institutions, but beyond that, I feel pretty good about the portfolio of programs we make available to students. So we have an entrepreneurship minor, which is very much interdisciplinary. Any student at the university could enroll in that minor, and in fact, many do. And then we have the entrepreneurship concentration. Frankly, it's an area that I would like to see us build out more in years ahead, because I do believe there's tremendous opportunity there. But it is something that we are covering and is the focus of a lot of our extracurricular opportunities, such as the Strive program, where we work with veterans around entrepreneurship, and there are other examples of that as well. But I do think there's opportunity to build that out even further in years ahead.
My last question, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal that talked about accounting being a dying profession or lack of interest from young people. What are you seeing there?
So I am very pleased to be able to report that our leadership in the accounting department has been extremely active in going to high schools and then bringing high school students on campus to talk about accounting. If you had asked me that question 2 years ago, I would have had to hang my head and say, yes, we're down. That is no longer the case. The last 2 years, we have seen a substantial upturn in accounting. We think that one of the key messaging here is you can get good jobs in accounting. That resonates with students, but it especially resonates with parents. And so the more times that we can get high school students and their parents in a room and talk about jobs in accounting, it really does seem to be making a difference.
I've told this story many times. My dad was a guidance director at my local high school. And when I was a freshman, he put me in bookkeeping. And I said, well, why am I doing that? He says, you're going to become an accountant. I said, why am I going to become an accountant? He says, because you'll always have a job.
That's absolutely right.
I would always have a job.
Absolutely.
Might not like my job, but I always have a job.
Or you could be weird like me and love it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Our next presentation, the Strategic Agenda and KPIs Update, will be provided by Dr. Mike Hoff.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Thanks for the opportunity to present to you. I will tell you that often presenting on things like this at an institution that is performing so well is a little boring, because I tend to like when there are problems and I can tell you where they are. We don't have a lot right now. This is the strategic planning framework that you all have approved, and I always like to start with this because whenever you're talking about key performance indicators, it's important to remember frameworks within which those performance indicators operate. The overall framework is an operational environment where the three biggest drivers are really access, success, and impact. So when you think about that, access is not just student access, right? It's about faculty recruitment. It's about community partner recruitment. It's about making them successful, and then the overall relationship building an impact, right? Improving the lives of the people of the region. In that access framework, there's only one metric right now that's at risk, and it gets a lot of publicity, and it's the amount of male enrollment. We're not the only institution facing that. Years ago, we would have had a lot of these that were at risk, but due to the efforts of the entire institution, from offering new academic programs to changes in recruitment strategies to new academic pathways, we've seen enrollment go up, particularly in some of the focus areas. And with the out-of-state tuition reset, which gets a lot of talk during the finance in out-of-state. Part of the reason that out-of-state reset is so important is when you're a border institution and your mission is to improve the lives of the people of the region, you've got to make sure that there are opportunities for the region. And that's what we made sure we did through the leadership that you all provided with that out-of-state tuition reset. When it comes to success, we're really doing quite well. We did see a little bit of regression in 2023 in the graduation rate. I will tell you that that's COVID related to the population. When we lost students in COVID, we just didn't lose freshmen. We lost students at every level. And that was a problem because we had historically high retention rates going into COVID where we expected those graduation rates to stay. Part of the reason this is on track as a metric is that we've already assessed the 4-year graduation rate, which this is the 6-year graduation rate. The incoming 4-year graduation rate's already ahead of where we are right now. So we have good indicators that we're going to see that go back up toward that 53 to 55% range. And just for some context, we have partnered with various organizations to do surveys of freshmen and get data. One of those was from an institution in California, which took all the information about our institution and gave us an expected graduation rate. Even that 49.8 is still ahead of what they would expect us to be doing with our student population. And you can see those post-graduation outcomes continue to increase as we make that more of a focus. And programs like the QEP, programs like you just heard the Dean of Business mention, we should expect to see that increase as well. When it comes to institutional impact, I want to point out here that the way that the dashboard works is the year of the dashboard is the year in which we report the information. There are some metrics that will report to you at your next meeting in the spring, like the research and sponsored program activity and the HERD research expenditures. Those get reported around this time and into January, and so those will be updated later. But those are still on track. We know where we are with most of those. And you can see that the institution is making a really high impact in patient care, service hours. You can see a little bit of regression in athletic events, and I think that you all can come up with any number of reasons why that would be true, but part of it is that it's really hard to maintain a playoff contender in every sport every year, and last year we had quite a few, and then this year we didn't have quite as many. But also the big thing is the asterisks around the attendance at the Martin Center, that's not a full year of activity yet. By the time the year closes out, we will see that exceed last year. And a big part of that, and part of the reason for the Martin Center, is it shows how many community people are participating in things that we offer. The more that we do that, the more our brand goes up. And overall, that's the thing that I would tell you about all the KPIs around these three things, is a long time ago, I've been able to be engaged with strategic planning at this institution for a long time, and I did it at a prior institution. Usually one of the big pain points that people have about the institution is we're not telling our story well enough. And although I think we could probably still say we could tell more of our story, I don't think it's the same concern that it used to be. And I think that's evidenced in the freshman retention rate, participation at the Martin Center, and some of the other activities that we have. When we look at the operational environment, you can see a little bit of a regression around great colleges to work for. I don't know if you all know all of the things that have been going on around that, but when you transition to any kind of an ERP and add work to people without decreasing work, you tend to have lower survey data when it comes to participation in that. One of the big things is around performance management, though, and one of the things that's the ERP is going to allow us to do is to focus more on employees and people than processes and technology, and I think that you'll see that improve. The staff turnover rate is aligned there, and it's at risk. This is not unique to ETSU in the higher ed environment. It's not unique to many employers. Higher ed's just one of the last ones that's seeing people sort of stop that leaving. You know, talking about articles in the Wall Street Journal, there were many for a long time that was talking about all the people that were quitting. And then now the articles around inflation are not enough people are leaving their jobs. And I think that you'll see this number improve, especially as we implement some of the strategies that we have around HR and the HR process once we get the ERP online in July. Deferred maintenance is stable, and the percent of courses taught by full-time faculty is high. That's a really important metric because most of what students attribute to their success is not in-class activity. It's time spent with faculty outside of class. And you have a higher opportunity with that, with a higher percent of full-time faculty. I don't know that I've ever made that point that directly, but that's important for you all to know on a lot of the surveys that we get. And then at the end of the year, once we're done with all the audits and things for the financial, we'll have the CFI. Part of the reason I put that on track is I know what goes into the development of the composite financial index, and the thing that causes you to go down is debt. We don't have a lot of debt, so we're going to be okay. Finally, where are we headed? Enrollment is the driver of our institution. It isn't just because it provides the money, it provides the energy that students bring. And we're projected right now to go back up over 14,000 students in the next year. And we don't have any indicators that we're going to slow down. I hope this gives you some confidence that the actions you've taken as a board over the past year have positioned us well to be able to recruit students and see the institution grow into the remainder of the decade. We're continuing to develop the operational definitions. Dr. Nick Hagemeyer and I met to talk about the ways that a Premier R2 would measure themselves, and the chair mentioned R1s, and we're talking about all the ways that we define those metrics and make sure we're counting all the things that we should. So at the next board meeting, I hope to have for you an update on some operational definitions for some of the KPIs that will allow you all to follow at home if you're statisticians like us. And then these are the activities that we're doing. The president will mention in detail what's going on with these activities around strategic enrollment management, financial aid optimization, the transition to Voyager. But part of the reason I have it on this slide is these things don't just happen one-off. What my office, and particularly my role for the provost and the president, cares about is how are these activities to maximizing each other? And I think that you're going to see a lot of things that come out of what we're doing in this work in the next semester that provide the opportunity for you all to engage in areas to be able to alert others to the kind of work that's going on at ETSU so we can get more faculty, more students, and more resources. I want to thank you for your time, and I'll take any questions.
Any questions? Thank you, Dr. Hoff.
Thank you.
I would now like to ask Dr. Brian Nolan to provide his president's update to the board.
Madam Chair, members of the board, good afternoon. On behalf of the faculty and staff, it's my pleasure to present to you the close of the year report of East Tennessee State University as we wrap up the calendar activities for 2023. The chair mentioned Founders Week, a week that we celebrated in October, and it was during that week that elements from ETSU Elevates all to the rededication of Gilbert Hall were an affirmation of the mission of this institution, which is a mission to improve the quality of life for the people of our region. And the presentations you had a chance to hear this morning were also an affirmation of that mission. Our faculty, both in terms of their teaching, their scholarly activities, their research, and their service, are focused on this outcome, and it's the same outcome that has driven the activities of the institution since we opened our doors in 1911. Dr. Hoff shared the strategic planning framework with you in his KPI overviews, and that same strategic planning framework guides my presentation today. I want to first start with access and success. In the KPIs, he gave you a sense of numbers. I've provided these to the campus in the State of the University address, but I want to drill down on this one more time as we close the calendar year. As you look at our performance from an enrollment perspective in comparison to those of other institutions across the state, this is a sign of good news. Community college enrollment has increased. Our enrollment is up. For most of the institutions in the state of Tennessee, you're beginning to see a rebound from COVID and a return of students to classrooms from Mountain City to Memphis. But as you look at those classrooms here in East Tennessee, you see that our enrollment's up about 105 year over year. You see the top 5 undergraduate programs in terms of enrollment, and then the top 5 graduate programs in terms of enrollment. As a reminder, this is the largest number of graduate students enrolled in East Tennessee State University in our history. It's also record enrollment in terms of freshmen. This is the largest freshman class in the history of the university. It's also the best prepared class academically. Our number of students from Tennessee are up, as well as the number of students from out-of-state elements as a result of the tuition reset. You had the chance this morning to hear from Dr. Heather Levesque, who leads this effort. I want to take a moment to thank Heather and her staff for the work that they do. As you look across other institutions in the nation, and as you hear stories coming out of higher education, there are stories of budget decline and enrollment loss. That's not the story here, and one of the reasons for that is because of the hard work that Dr. Levesque and her team do day after day to tell the story of our institution. You've seen this chart before, and this chart is a little bit of a segue from where we are to where we need to be. We as an institution are leading a P20 effort, and part of that P20 effort is to address gaps in the pipeline. What you see in this slides is that our partners in secondary education are doing an admirable job of moving students through 9 through 12. Our gaps are moving students on to higher education and then through our classrooms. We've talked to you at length about the demographic cliff, and we've done our best to scare everyone to death about the demographic cliff. What you see from this slide is the demographic cliff does not exist in Tennessee. The cliff that exists in Tennessee is a college-going cliff. And if we can just simply turn these college-going rates back to where they were pre-COVID, then we'll have sustained enrollment year after year after year. So every region of our country is unique. If we were in Ohio or West Virginia or Pennsylvania or places where the sun went away a few weeks ago and doesn't come back out again until May, those numbers look different. But here in the state of Tennessee, the sun is shining, and it is particularly shining with respect to population growth. Our challenge is to turn that population growth into enrollment growth at the university. You see in college-going rates across the state as well as in Northeast Tennessee, but here's those college rates by high school. And I draw your attention to university school. We've got a best practice lab school in our backyard. So what can we learn from university school that we can share with other high schools across the region as we look to drive a college-going culture? Dr. Hoff gave information on the enrollment projections. This is a little bit more validation of the strength of those projections. We are up year over year in terms of applications. We are up year over year in terms of interest in the institution. And if you were here this past Saturday, we held the largest open house in the history of this campus. More than 1,500 people were here on Saturday for an open house in which we were telling the story of the institution, and we had students, faculty, staff, and department chairs from across the campus in the ballrooms answering questions one-on-one with families as they were exploring their college choice options. So as we look at things that are underway, we've briefed you on the housing transformation. You've heard today with particular accent on the college business technology, the programs that we're growing. At the last board meeting, we talked to you about wraparound advising. We're doing a holistic review of scholarships to ensure that those resources are appropriately positioned to support the enrollment initiatives. And in this morning's committee meetings, you heard about some of the work we're doing to grow engagement in our student organizations. But I want to draw a particular accent on two things that relates to the enrollment initiatives. Trustee Treadway at one of the last meetings and during his orientation asked a series of questions around what are we doing to tell our story? How are we not only telling the story but conveying the importance of post-secondary education and a baccalaureate degree? So earlier this week, all of the universities in the state minus one launched a public awareness campaign. I want to take a moment to thank Jess Vodden on staff. She has led this in conjunction with the University of Tennessee, but this is the cover of the newspaper in Nashville, the Tennessean, that covered the launch of this initiative. The website's for the Future. Here's an example of some of the product. Your teachers learn from our professors, your farmers learn from our faculties, and you can see the messaging as well as the audience that this is driving to reach. So over the course of the next 3 years, you'll see concerted messaging from your universities driving home the importance of the work that we do to meet the needs of the people of the state of Tennessee. And here's one last piece on what that looks like. So as we move into 24, we'll do a follow-up with you in detail on the campaign and the metrics that assess its effectiveness. But this is one of the things that this board asked us to explore, and I'm showing and demonstrating that we've brought that question to reality. Another thing that the board has asked us to look at is equity gaps from a performance perspective across groups. This is our moonshot. Dr. Hoff mentioned that our graduation rate was on target. The board's target for graduation is 60%. That's 60% of the students who start at ETSU finish from ETSU. So clearly we have work to do to hit that objective. But gaps across groups yield what, from my perspective, is a moonshot. Because to close a graduation or a retention rate gap, here this number is 80% is the goal for retention, and you can see how that varies by group. But our ability to drill down on this starts the moment that students walk onto campus. Your GPA in your first 2 years is going to be a great predictor of whether or not you retain or graduate. And you can see the gaps that exist across groups with respect to lower division GPA. And then those gaps exist all the way to graduation. So one of the things that your staff is working on every day of the week is this moonshot, our ability to come back to you by the close of the decade and say, irrespective of background, all students at this institution are hitting your graduation goal of 60%. There was reference to this being a great place to work. One of the elements of a great place to work is employee satisfaction, and a driver of employee satisfaction is salary and compensation. We've shared this information with you before. This is how we, ETSU, compare to our peers in terms of faculty salaries, and here's how we compare in terms of staff salaries. Clearly, we as a university have work to do to close the gaps with respect to where we are on salary and where we'd like to be at the average of our peers. But I want to take a moment to thank the board for your approval of the amended budget earlier in this meeting. So the discussion that transpired in the Finance Committee this morning drilled into detail what's contained here within these bullets that I'd like to spend a couple of moments on. The approval action that this board took earlier today signified a 4.5% across the board salary enhancement. That is the largest salary enhancement in the modern history of the university. Now, I'm confident somewhere in 1930 or 40 there was a larger raise, but we can't find evidence of it. So as far back as we can track the data, what this board approved today is the largest percentage increase in salary in the modern history of the university. Within that, there's a $7,500 ceiling, and then we're putting our emphasis on our entry-level employee. So increasing the minimum wage to $13.65 an hour, which is a 19.3% increase. We're also adjusting all of the pay tables in the salary schedule so that those elements are funded at these levels. And in terms of our comparison to other institutions, some institutions increase salary 3%, others 5%. We are expending the full 5% pool that the board approved, but the 0.5% we're putting at the ability to raise starting salary. So I want to thank the board for your support as we brought this recommendation forward. These salary enhancements will go into effect November 1st. There's one other element that the board approved in its action, and that is the authorization for staff to implement a $500 one-time bonus at the point that we go live on Voyager. The go live on Voyager will move us from 12 pay periods to 26, and that $500 one-time bonus will ensure that families and employees are not disrupted as we make that transition, and they've got some predictability as we go from 12 pay periods to 26. So 4.5% across the board effective November 1, and then when we go live on Voyager, every employee at the institution will receive a $500 one-time bonus. So thank you to the board for making that possible. I've mentioned Voyager. We've talked about Voyager at length. The decision to extend the go-live date provides us the opportunity to spend significant time on implementing a new classification and compensation system for the institution. Our class and comp system is more than 20 years old, and what we're looking to do is move to a structure that's more market-based, that allows us to ensure that job families are reflective of job responsibilities. And we're going to model a lot of this work after the work that has been done at the University of Tennessee system. So when we go live with Voyager, not only will we be putting in place new operating processes and structures, but we'll be putting in place a new classification and compensation structure as well. So I want to take a little bit of time to talk about budget. This is budget current state, and then what the Higher Education Commission in Nashville is recommending as it relates to budget next year. But as you look at the operating budget that we're managing at the present moment, about 60% comes from tuition and other resources, about 40% from state appropriations. We are very fortunate that the state has continued to invest in higher education. And in fact, this year we see about $4 million in new E&G investments that we've received from the state. That has changed the complexity of this institution because we've been able to manage in a predictable way. Few institutions have the predictability of state resources that we do. In my former state, it's always up and down, and it's hard to plan. We have the ability to plan as a result of the investments that the state has made over the course of the past decade. And those investments have been significant. In fact, in 2019, the level of resources we received from the state were right at $70 million. This year, that number is at $99 million. So almost $30 million in new state resources are flowing through the university. Some of that's operating, the bulk of that is salary. Here's the recommendation that is before THEC presently. So a recommendation that provides outcome adjustments of about $1.8 million. And here's the recommendation for the medical units, about $300,000. I draw your attention to the College of Pharmacy. I've had the honor to be in this role for 12 years. And for all 12 years, I've longed to have the ability to put a chart in front of you that shows state funding for Gatton. That's what's here. It is a non-formula unit. And at the Higher Education Committee meeting yesterday, they recommended an additional $2.5 million on top of this to make the Gatton investment at 5. So that was a recommendation of THEC that they'll pass to the governor. But irrespective, pharmacy is now recognized as a non-formula unit, and you see that evidenced here on the chart. But I want to note that the approach that THEC is taking this year is a little bit more conservative than in the past. In the past, they've provided recommendations around outcomes funding as well as inflationary costs. Those inflationary cost drivers are not in their recommendation, but all of us know that inflation is a real factor impacting not only our families, but the institution as a whole. So it doesn't matter how you measure inflation, be it the Higher Education Price Index or CPI, it's a 4.5 or a 3.2. When it's all said and done, you see, particularly if you use CPI, we've got about $2 million that we've got to come up with from somewhere. So we've got to begin to look at efficiencies and operations to be more mindful with our stewardship of state resources if, in fact, what is ultimately funded by the legislature is what THEC is recommending, because that recommendation does not factor in inflation the way they have in the past. Quickly on capital, this is the action THEC took yesterday. You can see Brown Hall is the number 3 capital project in the state of Tennessee. This finishes out the building, and I'm very hopeful that we'll receive this funding in the upcoming legislative session, allowing us to put that project into full implementation. But this is the list of capital projects that the Tennessee Higher Education Commission took action on yesterday that will now be submitted to Governor Lee and the General Assembly for their consideration. In addition to new buildings, they made recommendations around capital maintenance. So I'm providing this here just for your visibility. Capital maintenance from a deferred maintenance perspective, safety and security, ADA, and then you see all in, if this is fully funded, that's about $17 million in maintenance and security money that would come to the university. Once again, this is an area in which all of us must say thank you to our delegation and to Governor Lee. Most states don't fund deferred maintenance the way Tennessee does. And as a result, when you look at the physical inventory of this campus, we're not looking at an institution with challenges in terms of steam lines. We're not looking at an institution with challenges in terms of infrastructure. We're not looking at an institution with leaky roofs all across campus. That's because each year the state invests and we invest, and those investments allow us to try to keep pace with deferred maintenance. Here are the deferred maintenance projects that are in the current year budget. So these are the things that are being addressed. And then here's out through 29, the list of deferred maintenance projects for the university. So you can see all of this is identified, sequenced, and then budgeted for. And assuming the state continues to make these investments, that means year after year, we're upgrading HVAC, we're upgrading roofs, we're increasing capacity in terms of the ability of utilities to move through campus, AKA campus water lines. But all of that work you saw on campus this summer, that was state investments in deferred maintenance, and I just wanted you to have visibility around the scope of deferred maintenance projects that exist at the campus through what is essentially the close of the decade. And then finally, here's the projects that are underway. Lamb Hall was completed in August. The academic building, we've got the fences up around it now, slated for completion in 25. You see Brown Hall, the Health Sciences Building, Powell, and then Gilbert, which many of you had the opportunity to participate in the ribbon cutting. Final portion of the presentation is around community stewardship. This is from the lighting ceremony the other day. You see how Bucky is lit up from those floor lights. Those are the brightest lights I've ever stood before. I think I'm still seeing spots from that day, but thanks to our board for being present that day, because it really was a wonderful celebration of the community stewardship element of the university's strategic plan. But in this portion of the presentation, I really want to give you a little bit of glimpse of some of the work that we're developing through the P20 initiative. You asked us about a year and a half ago to drill into the labor shed of this region and to get a better understanding of what the labor shed in Northeast Tennessee looks like and what's driving workforce participation across the region. So I'm going to show you glimpses of 2 counties. And what these 2 slides show is that those artificial lines of county borders are simply artificial lines. So here in Washington County, about half of the people who live in Washington County commute less than 10 miles to work. 35% commute 10 to 24 miles to work, and 14% commute more than 50 miles to work every single day. And for the people who work in Washington County, you've got folks who work in, who live here and work. They work in Johnson City, Kingsport, Jonesboro, and Greenville. So regionalism is at play. We tend to think of things in a very different way than the labor shed thinks of them. This truly is a region. So this is the Washington County data. And here's the Sullivan County data. Once again, the bulk of the people are commuting across county lines to go to work. And you see for people who live in Sullivan County, 25% work in Kingsport, 14% in Johnson City, 11% in Bristol, and 5.6% in Blountville. Once again, 14% of the people who live in Sullivan County are commuting 50 miles to work each day, just similar to here in Washington County. So as we're then looking at the economy of this region, it's a regional economy. It's not a community-based economy. But we know that that economy has gaps in terms of its labor supply. And we know that Tennessee is growing rapidly, and there's 600,000 new jobs that are going to become available in the state of Tennessee. But what does that look like here? In our region, here are the annual job openings, here are the median wages, and then the projected new jobs are above and beyond the annual openings. So why is Dr. Pederisi looking at a hospitality and tourism program? Because you've got 2,943 new jobs in our region in that area. Why are we seeing increases in health sciences? Why do we have the largest college of nursing? 4,197 new job openings projected in that space. But this data that's coming from our P20 efforts is driving the planning efforts of your institution. And this is the direction you encouraged us to push. You wanted data to drive decisions, and this is the type of data we're trying to build as we focus on P20. Because P20 isn't just getting more students from high school onto college, it's getting them from high school onto college into relevant career opportunities within the region. In addition to that work, I want to just spotlight a couple of strategic initiatives. The Gen Ed Redesign Task Force is about ready to complete its recommendations. We'll bring that before the board in the spring. The Academic Structure Task Force that is examining the structure of our colleges, that work is getting ready to wrap up. We'll bring that to the board in the spring. And then Christy Graham mentioned to you the work that we're doing from Strategic Resource Alignment Advisory Committee. I think we're just calling it the Advisory Committee because it's just too long to keep up with. But that's examining the manner in which we have funds flow and a redistribution of that funds flow at the institution, focusing on efficiencies and utilizing those efficiencies to invest in our people and drive salaries. We have to drive salaries upwards because you saw where we compare in terms of other peers. So one of our goals as a leadership team is to find efficiencies that we can then redeploy to salary across the institution. Shifting gears quickly, want to share with the board what will be the staff's legislative agenda going into the upcoming session. It's hard to believe that it's here, but it's here. Recurring priority, full funding of the THEC appropriations recommendation, support for the recommendation that THEC is making around Gatton as well as Quillen, support for Brown Hall, and then we as a staff are going to closely monitor the conversations around the nature, structure, and purpose of THEC. So those are the items that we'll be paying close attention to and advocating on behalf of as we approach the start of the legislative session. But as we approach the close of the academic year, there's a lot of things on the horizon. I would encourage you to join us tonight if you're able to, as the Alumni Association has its annual awards banquet. This evening, we will bestow the George L. Carter Award on General Ron Haidt, which is the highest award that the institution can provide to a single individual. We've got the annual holiday concert, which is the first Saturday in December, and we hope that you can join us for the dinner and concert that evening. There's a lot of close of semester activities in the theater department and others. You see the Broadway shows that are on the horizon. We play Davidson in basketball tonight, and then basketball on both sides moves through. Final home football game tomorrow. If you want to have some fun, join Dr. Sherlin and I Monday finals week as we serve pancakes to a couple thousand people upstairs in the cafeteria. And then you're also more than welcome to join us for graduation, as we'll shake a couple thousand hands. Somewhere between now and then, I'm going to buy a years-long supply of Airborne so I can try not to catch the flu or COVID going into the holiday season. And finally, just a couple pictures that reflect the activity of your institution within the past few months. In the top left is a picture of the board at the ribbon cutting for Lamb Hall. The middle is the lighting ceremony that I've referenced on a couple of occasions. The Elevates picture is what the chair referenced, our community engaged learning project in which we recognize students who are partnering with community leaders to make a difference in the region. The picture of the announcement around the Macy's parade. In the middle is your top 10 ranked golf program. I'm going to say it's 8. It's going to be as high as 6. But you have a top 10 ranked program in men's golf in the nation. They had one heck of a fall campaign. And then to the bottom right is Dr. Wilsey Bishop, who just a few short weeks ago was inducted into the Tennessee Healthcare Hall of Fame. So some pictures that reflect the scope of activity across the year. And before opening it up for questions, I just want to take a moment to thank a few people. There's a lot of work that goes into making presentations such as this possible. I want to thank Dr. Hoff for the work that he did to pull a lot of this together. I want to thank Dr. Green for keeping us all out of jail. When I thought that we were going to have a chance to start this meeting early, I passed him a note, could we start at 1? And he just looked at me audibly and said no. But Dr. Green, thank you for the work that you do to keep the movement of this board in a manner as seamlessly as you do. But in closing, I also want to thank the folks who are gathered here today. This is the bulk of the leadership team. This is a leadership team that has worked night and day to make these outcomes possible. Some, I think, have put cots in their offices trying to close out financial statements and get Voyager positioned and everything else. But I'm proud of the work that this leadership team has done. I have the opportunity to tell their stories, and it's been an honor to tell their stories for the past 12 years. Be happy to take any questions from the board.
Any questions? Okay, thank you, Dr. Holland. As the trustees will recall, during our May 19th, 2023 meeting, I asked Trustee Steve DiCarlo to begin discussions with President Nolan regarding a new 5-year contract. Since that time, Trustee DiCarlo has been working with the president and the university's chief legal counsel, Dr. Mark Folks, on the terms of this proposed contract. I'll now turn to Trustee DiCarlo and Dr. Folks to provide the board with an overview of the proposed contract terms.
Yeah, if you want to. I don't have my copy with me. I figured you were going to lead the discussion.
I'll be glad to go through it.
Okay.
Okay. So let me start off by saying thank you, Dr. Latimer, Chair of the Finance Committee, and the members of the board's Executive Committee, and upon delegation by the board chair, I undertook the responsibility of negotiating a new employment contract with Dr. Brian Nolan. To prepare for these negotiations in consultation with Dr. Folks, I reviewed a number of metrics, including salaries at our peer institutions and other comparable university, the salary trend over the past several years, inflation, and standard cost of living increases. From that, I developed a proposed salary and compensation package and presented it to the president. The results of these negotiations were reflected in the term sheet, which we're more than happy to discuss, and an agreement to essential terms that you have before you. So that's my prepared remarks. But what we tried to do was dive into the previous contract, get a better understanding of what had been done in the past, and then go forward with the president to negotiate what I feel, and I think the board feels, is a fair package that compensates him for not only the work he is doing, but the work he intends to do going forward. The process was frankly enlightening and educational, and, I got to read a lot of things around the state, both press releases and news coverage. But in the end, frankly, it's our intent, I believe, as a board to encourage the president to not only stay, achieve, prosper, and grow, but to do it in an environment where he feels he's being successful, and that we operate in a way that shows him our appreciation for the efforts he makes every day. Make no mistake, it is a very difficult job. I've been blessed to be head of a couple firms in my career, and his job is a lot harder. My time commitment in my passion was a lot. It is nothing compared to the commitment that Dr. Nolan makes every day. And the fact that it takes 7.5 hours to drive back from Nashville would be frustrating. There's other words I can't use. So with that, I mean, we will provide the terms of the employment agreement in the public forum, right? And so the details will be made available, and we're more than willing to discuss them here at this time.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from board members?
I just want to say how much I appreciate our president. I'm on campus quite a bit. I'm fortunate and I love being on campus. And just walking through, and I talk to a lot of the faculty, and he has so much respect from the students and the faculty. I appreciate that. I don't know, I think we'd be hard pressed to ever replace you and your passion and your care for our community. So we appreciate that. And as far as I'm concerned, I hope this 5 years, we turn around and you're still here at 5 years. We're doing this again.
As long as I can avoid getting hit by another truck, I think we'll be in good shape.
Okay, we'll get you an armored car or something.
Well, those are great comments, and I think the entire board would echo that. It is tremendous amount of work he does. I've been honored now to serve as chair and get to regularly speak with the president, and there's not a time that he is not working on an initiative that he has such passion for. And I, like you, get to come on campus, and it's almost like he's a rock star. He's so well respected in the community, and it's just impressive, all he's done, so.
Well, and if I could make one last comment, leadership is something that people don't recognize, how hard it is to be a leader. Because leadership is not only setting out policies and procedures, but living, the day-to-day. And I've been around some great leaders, some very, very successful people, names you would recognize, and I would frankly put you up there with all of them. I think you're an amazing leader, and you can feel, that people want to follow you, and I think that's the definition of a leader. And I think we are lucky to have you, and if I had a better voice, I'd talk longer.
Great. Well, do I have a motion to approve the new 5-year contract for Dr. Brian Nolan effective January 1st, 2024, with the compensation and other terms of employment set forth in the term sheet that has been provided to the trustees?
I so move.
Second? Any questions, comments, edits, or discussion?
I just want to go on record to echoing what everybody else said. Dr. Nolan's leadership has elevated ETSU to a level in the region, the state, and nationally, and I don't think we can underscore that enough. So we're grateful to have you in the leadership post here, and like Melissa, I hope you're here for a long time.
Yes. Terrific. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion, okay, one more comment?
Just, I want to thank the board not only for the support and the comments of myself, but also for the support and comments for the entire leadership team. As I referenced in my comments, I have the opportunity to tell the stories of the people who call this institution home. It has been the honor of a lifetime to serve this institution for the past 12 years. I've never been more excited about the future of this institution than I am at the current moment. And my family and I look forward to the opportunity to continue to serve this institution. But thank you. This is an institution that has changed my life, and it has been part of our family from the moment that Donna's family let me join the Fox family. Her mother went to East Tennessee State University and was a school teacher. Her aunt went to East Tennessee State University and was a school teacher. Her brother-in-law went to East Tennessee State University and is now an assistant U.S. District Attorney in Greenville. My son went to the university school. I was named an honorary alum of the institution last year, and tonight my wife will be named an honorary alum of the institution at the Alumni Honors event. So this is an institution that's near and dear to our heart, and I thank you for the opportunity to serve this institution moving forward. Thank you all very much.
I will make one more comment. You mentioned Donna, our First Lady. the sacrifices she makes because of all the time and effort you put in here, it's like bonus. You know, you get two for, you get to 2 for 1 there. So, yeah.
Well, I'll make it one more comment. As my wife says, nobody ever thanks me. Thank you, Donna.
All right. Well, since there is no need for the board to convene an executive session today, I would ask for a motion to adjourn the Board of Trustees. Second?
Thank you.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
John Paul, can you let us know when we're no longer live?